Welcome, everybody. GDG Cloud Boston and GDG Atlanta are pleased to present this series of certification workshops. We are in this info session today. We're going to try to match people to the right certification for the learning path that they want to be on, and whether that's to help you with job skills or learn more about Google Cloud, whatever your reason is, we want to match you to the right learning pathway, and we'll talk about all the certifications that are available within Google Cloud and also the learning resources that are available, which includes largely programs like this one that we're running here and also other ones around the globe that we can direct you to in case those are more appropriate. So today is an info session. We're not doing any heavy lifting today, but there is quite a lot of orientation material to go through, so I'm going to just jump right in. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah, I'm Norbert Kremer. I live near Boston area, and Jessica Rudd is a GDG organizer at GDG Atlanta. I'm a co-organizer at GDG Club Boston. We are, I won't read our bios, I just can sum it up. We both have a lot of experience with data. We have a lot of experience with Google Cloud, and we're also good trainers. So you're in a really good spot to get some great learning potential from this series. And we are talking about the cloud database engineer. I emphasize database as opposed to data engineer. So formally, Google calls it cloud database engineer. The other similar learning path is called data engineer, and we'll go into a lot of detail about what the differences are and which one might be better for you. So some of the slides here are provided by Google, so they're kind of generic and just give you a background of what the programs are at Google. And then other slides, you'll probably be able to tell the difference. Other slides are ones that I've created that are specific to this program. Okay, so the GDG groups are community-led groups of developers who are interested in Google's developer technology. We meet virtually and in person. There are about 1,000 GDG chapters across the globe. We have 2 in Boston and a 3rd one nearby up in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And we collaborate very closely with our colleagues in the Northeast and also obviously across the nation, as we are doing today on this program. So that's kind of the background. I do want to mention all of our meetings and Slack and other communication channels are covered by the Code of Conduct. Basically, to sum it up, it's very simple. It's be nice, respectful, and constructive, be collaborative, and participate. So this is a learning exercise for everybody. We want this to be a safe and friendly space for everybody that chooses to attend. And the formal Code of Conduct, if you want to read the legalese version of it, is given at this link here. I think we're planning to share these slides afterwards, so you don't have to feel like you need to grab all these URLs right now. And it'll be on YouTube as well. But yeah, we have a code of conduct. We have very few problems with this. Most people are here for the right motives, and we've had 1 or 2 issues over the last 5 years, so it's not usually a problem. Today's discussion, we're going to talk about the demand for cloud computing roles. It's increasing, in a word, and we'll mention how certification might help you with that, like the benefits to you, to your company, to your employer, and maybe you can calculate an ROI on that. I'm not sure that it's directly convertible to an ROI in a monetary sense, but it's definitely helpful. We'll talk a lot about the different certifications and the exams that go with them, and then step 4, we'll introduce you to the community. You're here, you're part of the community already. If you join the Slack channel, that's another way to join in. And we'll mention Skills Boost, which is Google's learning platform. And then finally, we'll talk about our Slack workspace that we've set up for our programs. And so it goes from, as you see, from the general to the more specific. And let's just dive in. So demand for cloud computing roles. Cloud adoption is growing continuing to grow. All three of the, well, there are now, I consider there are four hyperscaler cloud service providers. The ones that you know are AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. I would probably include also Oracle OCI as one that's coming up very strongly and can make a claim to be the fourth hyperscaler cloud provider. They're doing a lot of interesting things. We're here to talk about Google Cloud, obviously, but in general, across the board, cloud skills are in high demand. And I coach people and talk to colleagues that I've worked with over many years, and I tell them, look, if you're not learning about cloud, you're going to be eventually left behind. And you may be safe in your job now, but if you get laid off or need to find a new job, you will be at a very big disadvantage if you don't know about cloud. I could say the same about Gen AI as well and AI, but that's another topic for another day. So according to Google, Google Cloud is the skill that's seeing the fastest growing demand. I think that's partly true. It's partly how you measure it. Google Cloud Platform itself is growing very rapidly. There are some other contenders for this title, and so we don't need to parse this too finely, but basically all the clouds are growing. Google's actually been doing really well in the last couple of quarters. There was this sort of in the lay press, at least, there was a lot of observations that Microsoft has kind of run away with everything because of their advancing in Gen AI. Google's responding to that very strongly, and Google's growth is extremely high in terms of revenue, if that's the number you want to look at. But also, as I mentioned, Oracle, I think, is even higher. Oracle OCI is doing really well also, but on a much smaller base. Okay, so not saying that Oracle's anywhere near catching up to Google. In terms of market share, it is AWS, of course, Azure, then Google, then Oracle. And some people count, if you consider all of M365 as together with cloud, then Microsoft actually is even larger than AWS. So take these with a grain of salt, all these references. So this, I definitely agree with this. Cloud technology requires a new approach to learning, and Google has built some programs here that are really transformative and to help you. And so when I got into cloud in 2017, I did a pivot from all my work previously was in data warehousing on premises, and then I pivoted very quickly to cloud. So I was really behind the curve. I had to learn quickly. I jumped onto all of Google's so-called on-demand training, which at that time was on Coursera, and I used Quick Labs, which has now been converted to Skills Boost. So Quick Labs is still the underlying technology, but it's rebranded as Skills Boost. So when I got into cloud, I found that it was a much bigger thing than I had anticipated, and the learning approach that I used was kind of, and really the approach that Google tends to teach you is somewhat of a bottom up, like you learn service by service and piece by piece, and that actually is perhaps not the most effective. It depends on the style of learner that you are, but that may not be the most effective way to learn all of cloud. So I've actually more recently, when I train people about cloud computing, I suggest that they use a top-down approach as well as a bottom-up approach. So top-down gives you the big picture perspective, and so if you break things down, like you can look at cloud infrastructure as, compute, storage, networking, and security. Those are the four things. If you don't have those four things, you can't do AI or anything else. And so that's not a bad way to look at things also from the top down. Well, we can talk more about that over the coming weeks. That's really getting into the the content of what we want to talk about in the next 11 weeks. So I won't say much more about that. So why would you want to get started? What are the benefits and possible return on your investment for doing that? Well, first of all, you're going to have this like huge golden halo around your head if you get certified, and that will also, flow to your company and the building you work in. So I mean, it's just really great. I mean, your blood pressure will be lower, your cholesterol numbers will be better, your health will be improved all around. it's just a wonderful thing. But no, seriously, um, it is, Jess and I talked the other day about really the value of these in the marketplace. Um, we think that there's value in taking a workshop like this. You will learn probably a lot of skills about some databases that you may not use in your job day to day, but you will learn the whole broad variety of database tools that are available within Google Cloud. For me, I'm a consultant, so it's like really useful for me to have that broad perspective and have touched each product within Google database world at least a little bit. And so that when I go into a consulting engagement and something completely from left base is thrown at me, I'd say, yes, I know what that is. I can at least um, understand the significance of it. And in other words, I don't have that deer in the headlights stare that says, oh, I've never heard of that. I wonder what that is. And so, it's really good for that. Um, I think, I mean, Jess opined that I don't think, and I agree with her that we don't think that just having a certification without any experience is going to get you a job. Frankly, that's just the way it is. And I think that's probably true of any certification across the board. It shows initiative, it shows that you're willing to learn, it shows that maybe you are a continuous learner. And I think all those things are good, and those are things that employers look for. But just saying, oh, I got my data engineer cert, I am good to go. That's probably not going to happen for you in that way. And so you'll still have to do all the other things that are involved in job searching that are sometimes difficult, and it's not a really good market right now at the moment. So again, that's not the point of this meeting per se, but we're happy to, especially during the office hours, and um, we're going to have AUA Ask Us Anything sessions during our office hours weeks, and feel free to bring up these topics and ask us more about it. The certification program impact. This is more like from the individual. It tends to really help you with your confidence. Can be a good, I mean, I have seen a number of job descriptions and job postings from recruiters that say must have this certification. So it does occasionally act as a checkpoint that you just have to have this cert, checkbox. Otherwise, you can't even be considered for a certain position. I wouldn't say that's a majority of things that I see, but it definitely has happened. And yeah, so it's good. I mean, I think the main thing though is to actually engage with the community, start building things that maybe are a little bit outside your comfort zone. Like if you're a front-end developer and you haven't done much with databases, maybe this is a good chance for you to learn about how to integrate with the backends, or how to integrate the databases with Gen AI tools now, which is becoming much easier to do in the last few months. And all of these things will make your resume stronger and make you feel more confident in your skills. So that's kind of the point of it. We're gonna pivot now and look at the certifications and the exam details themselves. This is an overview of what Google calls, they have associate level and professional level certifications. There is actually only one associate level certification, so the S on here is a bit of a misnomer there. This S, okay, there is only one. I recommend for most people that they go directly to the professional level certifications. They're challenging and hard, but if you get the appropriate training, as you will do in this series, you can definitely pass the pro level exams. And it's my opinion, and not everyone shares this opinion, to be fair, but many do share the opinion that in the Google certification series, this associate level certification, in my view, does not really help you as a stepping stone towards the professional level ones. In Amazon, it does much more work that way. In AWS, they have what's called associate solution architect, I think, and then pro level solution architect. And in that case, the associate is kind of a preparation or stepping stone to the pro level. I just don't think that really works that way with this particular um, way that Google has set up theirs. And you can see it here because what's missing from the top level here is the business requirements, which includes design, planning, ensuring reliability, optimize. Those are all really critical things that just a software, what I consider a software developer that could jump into an agile team and help with these activities. And if you're not learning about that, you've sort of tracked yourself into being just a programmer, in my view, and not a developer. And so I distinguish between developer developer or possibly architect, right? Developer architect versus just a programmer. And I think, you know, being just a programmer is something that is a little bit of to me, outmoded, or an administrator, either a programmer or an administrator. So I won't say more about that, but here, so I've laid them all out here. There are actually nine professional level certifications, and that's if you include workspace, which is technically not part of cloud itself. Google Workspace is somewhat, you know, it's obviously exists in the cloud and it interacts with Google Cloud, but it's technically a different product set. And if you also then exclude the Google Fellow here, which is, you know, like you can count them on, well, you can't really literally count them on one hand, but there are very, very few fellows, and it's very difficult to get this fellow appellation. So I wouldn't consider that any of us are anywhere near doing that, including your leaders here. And so, you know, I start out, if you want to do something just to build your confidence and gain familiarity with cloud, jump into Cloud Digital Leader. It gives you a business-oriented view of the importance of cloud, why that's good, and it will, the exam is half the price of the other, so you're not risking a lot by taking this exam, and it will count as certification. Now, it's not a professional level certification, so I don't think in the job market it's going to do a lot for you, but I actually took this myself, even though I have a couple of pro level certs. I took the Cloud Digital Leader just because I wanted to see how Google presents Google Cloud to business leaders, and and maybe I could learn from that and talk to business leaders myself about how that works. But anyway, so today we're going to talk about, so you have these, let's focus on these pro level. So there are these four here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to exclude workspace. We're not really going to discuss that anymore. So there are 8 pro level certifications. And among these, the way, again, not everyone agrees with me, but I think the way that I see this is, these are the 3 that we're going to talk about more. I'm going to not consider the others, but just talk about these 3. So these top 2 in blue, in the blue here, Cloud Architect and Data Engineer, I regard them as more fundamental. If you don't know where to start, or you're just starting out with cloud, I would recommend you start with Cloud Architect, or what we call PCA. And if you're really interested more in data warehousing and analytics, and you're less interested in infrastructure, then you could possibly start with Professional Data Engineer or PDE. That's also a very good track to start with. The one that we're teaching here today is, well, actually, let me back up. I consider these the foundation of most of the others. So I think if you have time to do 2 or 3 or 4 learning paths, which would take maybe a year or more, right? If you have that much time to invest, then it's a very good plan is to start with these 2 and then build on the specialized ones on top of these as you need them and as your interests guide you. You know, so if you're a network engineer, you want to learn about engineering, Maybe you're more interested in security. Maybe you're a developer or DevOps. Either one of these would be great for you then. Or you will, if you really love working with databases, then do this database engineer, which is the track that we're going to do this in the next 12 weeks here. Now, so what I'm suggesting is that if you have time, in the ideal world, if you had enough time, you might start with professional data engineer and then layer database engineer on top of that as being a little bit more specialized. However, this isn't really depending, the green one doesn't depend on the blue one exactly. I think this database engineer actually depends more heavily on cloud architect. All of them rely on cloud architect because that's really considered the entry point to all of them. And that's where you learn about the most basic infrastructure components. And you learn about, let's say, instead of just learning about VMs, you learn about managed instance groups, and you learn about auto scaling. And those are really important concepts in the cloud that you may not learn anywhere else. And that's why I think this PCA is so important, even if you don't necessarily want to become an architect. Okay, so that's a long discussion about my view. I've talked to a lot of other trainers. Most trainers that teach for training companies, like I won't mention the names here, but there are a number of training companies where you can go to public classes, or you can hire instructors to come on site to train your team. Most of the instructors that I know agree more or less with the way I've laid this out for you. Now let's drill into the two. So it's interesting. Why does Google have two seemingly very similar certifications with the word data in the title, right? Professional data engineer and database engineer, cloud database engineer. And what's the difference between data engineer and database engineer? So I've already explained that I think this is somewhat more fundamental to a really well-rounded Google Cloud education, and this is definitely more specialized. And so, based on that, you might consider doing the data engineer first and then doing the database engineer later. Or you could fill in. You can definitely start. I don't want to discourage people too much from going directly to database engineer. You can definitely do it. You just will have some gaps in your knowledge that you'll have to spend a little extra effort to fill those gaps. And the advantage of joining a session like ours here is that your peers will guide you on some of this, and we will also, as session leaders, will definitely tell you, okay, you're struggling with this concept, and the reason is because you didn't get this, you didn't study this learning path, the professional data engineer. You didn't study this first, you went immediately to the second one. And that's fine if you want to do that, but just be prepared for situations where things are not clear to you because you didn't do this earlier, what I consider the more fundamental one. Now, I could say the same about the machine learning engineer learning path. Is extremely popular these days, of course, and we're well aware of that. A lot of people want to jump in like they don't have any experience with cloud or with machine learning or with data really, or with cloud architecture, and they don't have any experience at all. They just want to immediately jump in to become a data scientist, MLE. I think that's probably not a good idea for most people. This is probably the most difficult learning path of all of them, to start from scratch. Okay, just to jump in, naive to cloud. I did, like I was in 2016, right? I didn't know anything about cloud. I would not have recommended past self. I have to plug in my power. Hang on one second. Otherwise, my thing will crash here. Okay, good. So yeah, I would not recommend jumping right into machine learning engineer. I'm certainly not going to block you if that's your desire and you're really gung ho to do that. But just you would expect to, if you were to do that, I would say you probably need to supplement it with additional training somewhere else. You'll either need to go back to some of these learning paths, which by the way, you can, once you sign up for Skills Boost and get into our program, there's nothing to stop you from going back and looking up some video or some lab from these earlier, or any other learning path. You just can move around as you wish within Skills Boost. But just remember that there are almost 1,000 different activities within Skills Boost, at least 800 or 2,000. And so it can be overwhelming just to navigate through it. And we're going to talk about that at length as well today. So I would caution you, I'm just trying to help everyone set realistic goals and realistic expectations about what you might be able to accomplish here in the next 12 weeks. And Google recommends that we do this in a 6-week program. We've stretched it to go out to 12 weeks. We put the office hours meetings intervening between the 6 Google supplied sessions. And so we did that to allow extra time, because it can be challenging to get everything done especially with 4th of July and summer vacations, so forth. It can be really challenging to get the focus that you need to get everything done in 1 week. So yeah, I won't say more about MLE. Certainly if you have interest in that, I think we're going to run this series later this year at GDG Club Boston. We have run it once or twice before. It's very popular, and it's a great learning path. It's just a little bit hard to jump in from scratch right there. So let's talk about the 2 data-related certifications, and let's focus on the differences between them. So the one that we're teaching here in these 12 weeks is Cloud Database Engineer. And this is what it's all about, and the exam is key to this as well, right? So you will see, let me hide this. There we go. You will see here that as a database engineer, you would design, create, manage, troubleshoot Google Cloud databases used by applications to store and retrieve data. Well, that sounds fairly obvious. I will explain more what that means, but you should be comfortable translating business and technical requirements into scalable and cost-effective database solutions. Okay, that's where you want to be, is being able to do everything related to databases. Now, the prerequisite knowledge, don't pay too much attention to these are prerequisites. These are things I think that these might be prerequisites for taking the exam or for doing this job role, but they're not prerequisites for starting this study learning path. Okay, so don't take this too literally here. The prerequisite lab, we will come back to this, because we do have some urging to give you about completing this by next week or soon. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So here, let's compare now, what is a data engineer? A data engineer focuses on how to architect big data systems, collecting, transforming, and publishing in a scalable, efficient, and reliable way. Well, that's all true and correct, but it doesn't really give you the sense that I think is important to really understand the difference. So I've prepared my take on this. Okay, so you have 2 job roles that are similar, sound very similar, and they are actually fairly different. Data engineer versus database engineer. One thing you need to understand is that in Google's way of thinking, BigQuery is not a database. They call it an enterprise data warehouse. It is actually also not a warehouse. This is a misnomer, and I'm an expert on this field, and I could talk to you for a long time about why BigQuery is not actually a warehouse, because BigQuery, actually what it is an analytic data platform. And that separates it from all these other ones over here, like Postgres, MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, and Spanner. They're all relational databases. BigQuery arguably also is a relational database management system, but because it has tables and joins and you query it with SQL. So in that sense, it is a relational database. However, the purpose of it is very, very different. The purposes of these different products are very different. So here's the way to look at it. On the left side, and so Google has very correctly decided to make BigQuery in its own world, so to speak, over here on the analytics side. So even if you look in Google Console, you will not find BigQuery under the database products, and that's like a little confusing at first. It's like, well, it's a database, right? Isn't it? And so no, but it's not grouped with Cloud SQL and the others, or with Spanner. It's grouped under analytics, under the analytic tools. So just so you know, when you get into the console, to look for it that way. So what do you mean by analytic workloads? Well, these are simple database systems that are set up to help make business decisions within a company. And so they usually involve operating with very large and complex data sets. And they typically integrate, like a data warehouse system will integrate data from many different source systems, and those are usually other database, like other kind of relational databases. So typically you have the databases that are built here on the right side feed into the data warehouse on the left side, and that's what a lot of these tools are all about. So you're building and designing a data warehouse, or maybe a data lake these days. You're using BigQuery with a big data approach. You're doing what we call ETL, extract, transform, load, or ELT, and you're using Dataproc or Dataflow tools within Google Cloud to do that, or others like dbt or Fivetran, or those are fine also. And these can be either streaming or batch loads. And there's a lot of data cleansing, data cataloging, and the end result of this is look reports in BI. So these are all really important topics, and these are all covered. These are largely covered in the data engineer path, learning path, which is different from the one that we're doing here. Okay, so the one that we are doing, we call them transactional operational workloads. So these are the backend system for a web app. Or let's say you have an e-commerce shopping site and somebody places an order. That order could be stored in a relational database. It might be stored in a NoSQL store if that's what the architects have decided is more efficient. So both of these are covered on this side. So we have a NoSQL store. Most highly scalable one is Bigtable, but Firestore is also often used to support web apps, and particularly mobile apps, and applications that would be supporting multiple connections at the same time to the same person, right? So you might be, it's not uncommon that I'm actually looking at LinkedIn on my computer, on my laptop, and I'm also looking at LinkedIn on my smartphone. And Firestore is really good at keeping all those things in sync, right? If I make an update on my phone, it automatically flows to the web. Well, how does that happen? Well, that's to some extent what we talk about over on this side. So think of this as small updates, small revisions to existing data. Like when I place an order on an e-commerce site, or if I buy if I order a taco at Taco Bell, that's a small amount of data, right? It's one person, one event, one item of, small number of items of food. It's not this, what we have on the left side is this massive, sometimes massive data sets and the questions are deceptively simple, but they involve scanning over large data sets to get the answer. So it's like what was my revenue last year, or how many, what did I sell last year, and what categories, and what stores are being more successful than others. Those are actually pretty simple questions logically, but they involve scanning huge amounts of data and what we call aggregation, right? Just sum up and roll up. So that's what this is about. So I hope this gives you a good idea of the major differences between what a data engineer does and what a database engineer does. Okay. Now let's talk about because Gen AI is everywhere, right? Generative AI is everywhere today. I went to Google Next, and I also went to Google I/O conference. At both meetings, and I've been watching this field obviously for 2 years. as everyone has been. That's in the cloud. Um, the a year ago, every company, Google, BigQuery, and every other cloud data platform company, and because I follow all the others and I'm knowledgeable about many others, including Snowflake, Databricks, AWS Redshift, and a few others, right? I follow these aggressively and I train about them at conferences. I teach about these things. So I follow all these companies and what they're doing in Gen AI. A year ago, everybody was announcing their aspirational goals and their vaporware products that were not really, they were maybe available in private preview, maybe not, maybe we're just talking about them, we don't even have them ready yet. And so that all changed in the last quarter, earlier this year until, like I would say, January to now. This is all changing, and these products are being fielded to production. They're going into GA. They're becoming broadly available to people. That's BigQuery, and the other products from competing data platforms that I mentioned some of, and also very significantly, Google is integrating generative AI capabilities into all of the databases, but basically all in Spanner, Cloud SQL, Bigtable, Firestore. All of these database products will have very powerful generative AI capabilities integrated with them, either happening in the last month or two or in the next month or two. All of this is transitioning in the middle of 2024 from vaporware to real software. So it's a very significant turning point in the Gen AI story, right? Is happening right now. And so if you think you've missed the boat, you haven't. If you think it's all hype, it isn't. It was hype. It was largely hype, and it is now transitioning into something real. So, it's not our focus here to talk about it, but I just want to make it clear that these features are coming into all of these products on both sides of this table. However, the large data sets, if your goal is to build a data warehouse that will supply a large data set to train machine learning model at scale, okay? I'm talking many terabytes here, not a few gigabytes, many terabytes up to petabyte scale. If that's your goal, you have to do that on the left side here with BigQuery. You can't do these massively large analytics systems. In other words, these training data sets for large ML models are much more closer to the analytic workload than they are to the transactional or operational. Now, that's not to say that, Spanner has capabilities that go into the terabyte range, but Spanner would not be a good match, for example, to answer these global types of questions like we're asking, like how many couches, chairs, and dining room tables did I sell last year, and in what geographies were they selling? That's not a question for Spanner. That's something you do in BigQuery, and that type of question is much closer to what we're doing when we're training large ML models. So again, we're not focusing on ML, but we definitely are aware of it, and the integrations are coming, and they're very interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit about them in our intervening weeks, in the office hour weeks. We're going to try to have some guest speakers to mention these things. They're not part of this curriculum, so to speak. They're not part of this learning path. They're not on this exam as it is structured today. Okay, just to give you the direction of where all this is going. So, okay, if you're now still convinced that you want to stay in this workshop series, yippee, that's great. You should do that. And we'll welcome everybody that wants to join us. We did have some prerequisites that we posted on our Bevy. When you signed up for Bevy, we do suggest that the prerequisites are you have some cloud experience, maybe a year working on Google Cloud or AWS or similar cloud experience, right? Or you have some experience with databases, like you've worked with one of the products here, that you worked with one of these Postgres, MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, and you maybe done that for 6 to 12 months, either as a developer or a DBA or some other significantly technical role in database world. Okay, or you have either the PCA or the PDE certifications, or you've studied that learning path previously in Skills Boost, right? If you have any of those things, then we think you're ready. You're more than ready to come into this series that we're running. If you don't have those, please talk to us. If you're in a borderline situation or you think you're in a gray zone, just come talk to us, because we don't want people to go halfway through and hit the wall and get discouraged and drop out. It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't hurt us as session leaders, right? Whether we're teaching 30 or 50, it doesn't really matter. It just, we're all here in a shared screen share, and you're not taking anything away from us. I just don't want you to become discouraged and drop out, right? And so this whole session today is about setting realistic goals. So we think, take a look, go back to Bevy, take a look at the prerequisites. If you're in doubt, talk to me or talk to Jessica, and we'll help you, guide you through it. If also, we do anticipate that for people with the prerequisites, you probably are going to need to spend 10 to 12 hours a week outside of these sessions, where you're going to be in Skills Boost, and you're going to be watching videos in Skills Boost, so-called on-demand training, and you're also going to be running the labs in Skills Boost. The labs themselves usually take 6 to 8 hours, and that's if you do them all successfully on the first try. If you don't succeed, you can retry the labs as many times as it takes to succeed. But usually, except for the ones at the very end are called challenge labs. Some of them are extremely difficult, and we can help you with some tips on how to get through those. But most of the labs, you should be able to do them on the first try within the time. They're all timed. There's time allocated, so you should be able to get through the labs. But we're thinking that 10 to 12 hours, if you have the right prerequisites. If you are a little less qualified, then maybe you could, bump it up a notch and put in 20 hours a week. You should be able to still do okay. But don't think that you can just come to this meeting and spend a couple hours watching a couple vids per week. That's not going to cut it. You just won't get much out of this whole thing, and you're not going to be able to pass the exam. So that's just, again, trying to be realistic here. Now, after everything I said, you're decided that, hey, you know what, Norbert, you're right. I think this database stuff is not exactly right for me. I'm not working with web designers. I'm not building a backend for a web-based system. I'm more into analytics and data lakes, and our company's starting a data lake, and I want to join that team, et cetera, et cetera. Then maybe the data engineer learning path is better for you. It is a little bit more foundational in the world of all the certifications anyway. If you want to do that, we have an answer for you there too. There are 2 other GDGs globally, at least 2 that are running this data engineer workshop series. There's one that's underway already in cloud at GDG Cloud Munich. I don't know if Spiros might be on this call. I was chatting with him earlier this week. He would be the person. You can just look up GDG Cloud Munich. Be forewarned that they're already like halfway through. They're almost halfway through. So it might be difficult for you to join in as it's in progress. They may not even allow you to do that. It's up to them what their prerequisites are for their sessions. So they may not want you to do that. Each GDG sets its own policy regarding remote attendees, the languages that are spoken, and then Munich is obviously in Germany, so I believe that they're holding the sessions in English, but I don't actually know. They could be in German, and also the time zone, obviously. So I know we have people online here today from many time zones across the globe. So I'm not suggesting that we're open to any location. and any time zone, and we're doing ours in English. So that's what our policy is. Now you check with each of these GDGs, and they will tell you what their policies are. Now the one that is starting in July next month is GDG Cloud Bloomington Normal, and that's being run by Meredith Olson. Is Meredith online here today? I don't see her in the list, but
I haven't seen her.
Okay. I thought she might have been able to join. So anyway, she's a really good collaborator of ours. She's joined our previous sessions as a participant, and she has been running a couple workshops on her own. So also really excellent resource, really good trainer. And if that's where you want to go, then I would definitely recommend. I wouldn't really recommend jumping into the middle of Cloud Munich. If you want to do this data engineer path, wait a month and start with the cohort that's beginning at Bloomington Normal, and I think it's your best option there, really. So let's now get into, as I said, we will go from the general to the more specific. So I want to give you a little bit more detail about the certifications, where to get more info, and how the certifications map to Skills Boost, which is a little tricky, actually. Okay, so the place where you get authoritative information on each certification is here at this URL. So there's, I don't know if I can, oops, I guess that's no, I can't jump over to that right. I don't want to jump to it right now, but basically for each certification you will see, actually let me see how tricky that would be to jump over. Well, why don't we come back to it? If there are questions about this, we can come back to it. But basically, what you're going to do, go to this page, look for the certification that you're interested in. So presumably at this point, that's either data engineer, maybe cloud architect. Maybe you want to go back to square one and start with cloud architect, data engineer, or database engineer. Those would be the three to look at. And then you'll see the role definition, which we already looked at for the two data-related ones. You'll see the exam overview, the exam guide. There are some sample questions. I think it's about 20 sample questions that will be similar to what you might encounter on the exam. And then you also have the link to the Skills Boost learning path, and then finally the link to the registration site. So these will guide you to, so the reason I bolded this line, the link to the associated Skills Boost learning path. There are many learning paths in Skills Boost that are not connected to a certification. And so you might be confused, like, how do I want to get this certification? How do I know which learning path I need to do in Skills Boost? Well, one way is to come to these meetings, right? And we'll tell you. And but really the point I'm making here is that don't answer that question by starting in Skills Boost. Go to the certification page itself. That will have the link back to the Skills Boost learning path. That's the authoritative way to find out what the right learning path is for that cert. So the exams, again, this is from Google. The length is 2 hours. It is a timed exam. It's closed book, obviously. It's multiple choice, usually 50 to 60 questions. There are prerequisites, none, meaning there's no prescribed path that you need. You don't have to take the exams in any order or sequence. You can just jump in wherever you want or wherever you feel like you're qualified. The recommended experience, this is actually pretty heavy, 3 years. Well, no, it's about right, I guess. When I moved to cloud, I took my first exam within 3 months of pivoting to cloud, and so I had less than this, but I also was extremely focused on learning it, and I spent a lot of time on Coursera at that time doing it. So I think this is fairly typical if you have a job, right, and you are doing this as a part-time thing. For me, I was using my downtime, and I that was my job. My job was to learn enough to pass the certification exam. And so if you're doing it that way, you're spending, I spent 40, 50 hours a week doing just this training, and then I was able to get past one exam within less than 3 months, something like 2.5 months. So you can do it. It's just, if you have other things going on in your life, which I hope you do, if you have a job or a life outside of work, then, you can't spend typically 50 hours a week learning about Google Cloud, right? So that's, again, being realistic. The exam delivery methods are either online or on site. The company that's used is called Criterion with a K-R-Y something, Criterion. This will you don't have to remember that. It'll be linked in the certification page. It's easy to find. In I personally recommend going to a testing center. Um, I recommend one in Boston, which is in Malden in the Boston area. It's on the Orange Line. It's very close to MBTA, in other words, and it's just a short walk over. It is not a fancy building. It's not a fancy facility at all, but they have 10 workstations there where they deliver the exams. I've taken 4 or 5 exams there. I've never had any problems with the testing center itself. Everything's smooth. Um, on the contrary, when I tried during COVID time, I tried to do an exam at home. I found that the setup for doing that was very tedious, and I had a lot of trouble with software, and I engaged with their support, and I was hassling with them for over an hour, and I ultimately could not. I just couldn't. They weren't making any progress after an hour, and I just said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I got some other things to do today, and so um, I ultimately lost the $100 because Criterion would not refund, because I said it was my fault. Criterion would not refund, and Google didn't help me resolve that either. So I lost the $100 for that particular exam, trying to do it at home. Other people have had good success at home. Just so you know, you have to basically clear out. You have to have almost a room or a space in your house or your apartment, wherever you are doing it, or your office. You have to have a room that it's like completely empty of books, papers, and you have to scan the whole room with your phone or with your laptop. And I just find the whole thing very tedious. So I highly recommend going to an exam center. I don't know, Jessica, do you have a center in Atlanta that you prefer?
I don't know the names of them. I mean, if they're usually the one I went to. I mean, Criterion has locations all over the place,
Yeah.
and the one I went to was like at a testing center at one of the local like state universities here. But
Okay.
there's many locations, and I also did I've done one exam, not a Google exam, at home, but it's through the same like Criterion, and it was awful, absolutely awful. Like I understand like that people have situations where they have to do it at home. I would say if you
Yeah.
can avoid it at all costs, to avoid it. It's extremely invasive, extremely difficult.
Okay. So
Yeah,
you got
and
two
not
no
recommend.
votes.
Yeah, I would say absolutely do not do it at home.
You got two no
Um,
votes on the home. I mean, it sounds like it should be so easy. Just, oh yeah, just flip open my laptop and they, do a quick scan around the room. I mean, they just want to make sure you're not cheating, right? So it's obvious, but
yeah, it's like
right.
very, I don't know, it's one thing when you go to an exam center, you put your stuff in a locker, you go
Yeah.
into a room and you have nothing with you and it's fine and you know people are watching it, but you're out in like someone else's space. It's like a whole other experience when you're in your own space and you have somebody watching you, and like I had a medical device on my wrist, and so like but you're not supposed to have a watch on, and
Uh-huh.
partway through the exam, I'm like on my computer doing exam, and all of a sudden, like my screen, like they take over your screen, and they immediately start texting me, like yelling at me, like you must take the watch off, blah blah blah. And I had to like prove that it was a medical device. It was very not a fun experience. So
This was
yeah,
at
don't do
home.
it.
This was at your Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you've heard, no, to be fair, I've heard from other people that they've done it at home several times and had no difficulty with it. I don't know if they have a special room that they cleared out, or something, but um, Yeah, so take it for what it's worth. You've got two two experiences here that were both negative, and but I mean, during COVID, it made perfect sense to do it at home. I mean, I was extremely afraid of COVID, um, because of my medical background. I actually worked with researchers that worked on lung diseases, and I was like terrified of COVID before the vaccines came out. So I totally get where the advantage of this is, but it just doesn't in practice work too well. Now, with that said, it will cost you the same either way. It costs you $200. Um, Brings me to the next point. We have sometimes had exam vouchers for people to pass all the way through a whole series of workshops. We don't have them for this series. I've been asking Google about it. They've not offered us any vouchers yet. Okay, and we're going to continue to ask, but at this time, you should not plan on getting a voucher, no matter, even if you do everything perfectly and you complete the whole series, whatever, you don't plan on getting a voucher. Now, some employers will pay for these exam fees. Um, if this is a real impediment for you and you have done a good effort of working through everything in Skills Boost and you've attended most of the sessions and you are finding that you simply cannot afford $200 for the exam, come and talk to us. We will probably be able to find a way for a few people to help out. But we can't offer them as part of the, in the past, I think we said, if you do this, if you go to all the sessions and you complete all the labs, whatever, you'll get a voucher. We're not in a position to do that. So just so you know, it's money is getting a little tight across the board at all companies. And that's why one reason why we're meeting virtually, because we can't find venues that are appropriate for this. And it's just tough. Companies are just saying no everywhere. And so let's be grateful for what Google gives us. They're giving us a lot. They're giving us Skills Boost. They're giving us this whole program and the structure behind it, and Bevy, the Bevy platform that we're all using today. So let's take it for what it is. So the next point here: join with us, learn with a community of people. You're joining a cohort now that's starting a program. We're going to, yeah, this is the so-called road to Google, and you see it at the bottom here, road to Google Developer Certification Program, yeah, road to Google Developers Certification Program, or I call it the road program for short. Other people have other nicknames for it, but it's a mouthful. That's what we're doing here. It's what we're given as session leaders. We're given a set of 6 slide decks, um, and we're going to run our program by interspersing office hours between the 6. So we're going to have 11 after, today's just the info session. We'll have 11 sessions following this where we have the real discussions about the substance of what we're teaching. And we, in the past, we found, the Slack channel is really effective in having a place where you can help each other. It's not all, Jess and I have discussed this quite a bit. We're not here to teach you. This isn't like a university where you're sitting in a classroom and we're going to teach you everything. We're going to guide you and coach you and hopefully build excitement and help support a cohort of people. But most of the effort, the mass majority of effort, is going to come from your doing the on-demand videos in Skills Boost and running through the labs and learning the Google Cloud products in that way. So you will, as it says here, you will definitely all get access to Skills Boost. That may take a little bit of doing. I've been in contact with Google support on that. They are primed and ready to help us if there are any difficulties. So that should not be a big issue. It may take a day or two sometimes. But we will, you'll get, okay, lastly, you'll get support from community members. And this should actually say certification and not certificate, which I will speak to in a moment. But I think I'm ready to go to, okay, the program offer. Yeah, study group, you're in it. You're in a study group already. You have on-demand videos that you can watch. You have hands-on labs, and you have community, which is largely done through Slack. So if you do the way what I you can use Skills Boost in any manner that suits you. What I sometimes do or often do, I think I always do this now. I came to this halfway through my experience, but what I do now is I binge watch all the videos. I don't do the labs right away, but I binge watch all the videos in a, and then I do the labs. And then if I have any questions during the labs, I go back and watch that video again selectively. So that works well for me. I get into this depending on how I feel when I get up in the morning. I say, I just don't feel like doing a lab right now, but I'd be happy to do 2 videos, and boom, boom, knock those out before lunch. And then, like, I'm not a morning person, so the evening is my most productive time, and like that's when I really, okay, now I'm charged up. I want to do a lab, or I'll do two or three labs in a row. But that's just me. It might make more sense for you to do everything in sequence, because the labs are tied. At the end of the day, the labs are tied to the videos, right, in the sequence. So what I do is a little bit unusual, perhaps, but that's how you can do however you want to do it. Uh, Skills Boost is, as I mentioned, used to be called Quick Labs. Quick Labs was an independent company that developed training resources for both Google and AWS. Google liked the company so much that they bought the whole company. They just bought Quick Labs, and it's in the Cambridge area up here near Boston, and it's still here. And they, I believe AWS no longer uses that platform. They've developed their own, or went to a different vendor, or somehow figured something else out. So I believe that Skills Boost is the only thing that Google Cloud is the only thing that's on Skills Boost per se. As I mentioned, you get training videos. Okay, let me talk about what's free and what costs money. Anybody can use Skills Boost just by signing up with a Skills Boost account. You get all the training videos, and all the PDF resources are free. Anything that's a document or PDF or a video is always free to everyone all the time. So you can actually learn an awful lot just from the videos. But you would not get the full experience of having the labs, and you will not be able to get badges and other things that show that you've completed the labs, because you haven't. Normally, what the labs cost credits. A cloud lab costs credits. Usually, most labs are either 1 credit or 5 credits. I haven't seen many that are in between for some reason. The more expensive ones tend to use more resources, like they'll have like a machine learning training session where you have to use some GPUs. So they're kind of tied to more resources means more credits. Credits are, if you buy credits, I think you can buy credits a la carte. I think it's $1 per credit. So credits translate into money in some form. And so the more resources you use, the more you're going to be charged in credits. Now, Google just announced I think it was announced at I/O or maybe at Next, somewhere in the last 6-8 weeks, Google has announced this new program called Innovator, Google Cloud Innovator. Be very careful with the innovator word here. It has multiple meanings, and it's very confusing. Google Cloud Innovator is something that anybody can join for free. If you do become an innovator, you get 35 credits per month on Skills Boost that you can use for labs. So that's 7 big labs, or some mix of maybe 15, 20 smaller labs, and it's a fair amount. It's not as much as I would do if I were binging on this every day, full time. I would use more than 35 in a month, but 35 is a pretty generous free allotment, and this is a great program. What the impact this has on the road program that we're running is that we've had in the past some people that just kind of do a hit and run. They show up to the info session, or they show up every other time to our meetings, and maybe they get on for half an hour, 20 minutes, and then they drop off, and they're gaming the system. They're just grabbing the skills boost credits, and not really participating in the cohort or the community aspect of what we're trying to do here. And so we prefer that you wouldn't do that, honestly. And there, with this Cloud Innovator program, there's very little incentive for you to do that now. So if you just want 35 credits a month, go become an innovator and you're good to go. If you want the community experience, join our program and participate as fully as you can. Now, we understand people have families and vacations and other things. So just like the code of conduct says, be nice, be helpful, participate. That's all we ask. And let's go to the next level of innovators. Now, there's something called Innovators Plus program, which gives you, it's either a monthly or annual. Most people who do this, I think, just grab the annual subscription. This is basically for $2.99 per year. You become an Innovator Plus. That gives you unlimited access to Skills Boost, all the labs that you want to do, all you can eat, right? And you can jump around. You can do it in a learning path. You can do it outside of a learning path. You can do whatever you want in Skills Boost for $300 a year. It actually includes a lot of other goodies, I'll call them, that amount to, depending on how you use them, if you completely take advantage of all of them, it can be worth up to $1,500 worth of nice things in return for the 300. So depending on your situation, it can be an incredibly good deal. So it does include an exam voucher, for example. Okay, just to let you know, there's an exam voucher in there. There is a, if you pass the exam, oh wait, sorry, there's $500 worth of credits, of Google Cloud credits, that you can use in your own. There's unlimited Skills Boost access. If you pass the exam, I think you get an additional, it's gated on passing the exam, then you get additional goodies out of it. But most people are here, most people who are in this session today, you're here because honestly it's free, and also you get the community involvement, you get the community and the Slack and all that. So I'm not pushing you toward this at all. I'm just saying that it's out there if you want to do this later. Like maybe you participate in this community program, this only will get you Skills Boost for a few months, and then you decide, well, I really want to do more on my own. I don't want to join another workshop, or nobody's running that workshop that I want right now. I'll just sign up and pay the $300. I'll get a lot in return, and I'll have the access to Skills Boost. Now, I think based on what the direction of where Google is going, it's possible they may actually be increasing this generosity, this program, in the future. So keep your eyes on Google Blog and other LinkedIn and whatever to stay up to date on where this is going. I think eventually they may make this even more generous. I believe that there are for some Google Cloud customers, there are today even more generous innovator programs that beyond what is here available, that any individual can just go sign up for without any being part of a company or a Google Cloud customer. So there was actually some confusion about that at Google Next. They made some assertions that turned out not to be true, and there was a lot of confusion about it. But I'm pretty sure this is right. What I'm putting here seems to be correct. It's supported by public documents that Google has published. So I think pretty sure I think we got it right here this time. But I did actually inadvertently post some incorrect info on LinkedIn that I had to retract. So it's a bit embarrassing on that score. Like I said, anyone who attends these workshops or similar workshops will get free access to our Skills Boost credit pool. I should have said here, that's only for the duration of the program, or it's month by month. So I think that if you only come to one meeting, you'll get Skills Boost for that month. You will then drop out. If you don't go to any other meetings, you'll then drop out. If you come to most of the meetings, you'll get the Skills Boost access will last for the duration of the program. Okay, of our program. This is done by something called a credit pool. The credit some of you have received an email already that you are now part of the credit pool. In theory, all of you should have received that email. I don't know if you did or not, but we'll check that before the end of the evening. We'll set up a way to communicate about whether you got in the credit pool or not. If a lab indicates that credits are not available, that means you're not in the credit pool. So just probably Slack is the best way to connect with us as session lead. We can troubleshoot that. For people who join this event using meetup.com, you may, I'm not 100% sure about this. I've been told by a couple people that can be more problematic in terms of getting Skills Boost access. I may, in that case, ask you to also sign up through our Bevy platform. And likewise, if you are using a Hotmail account, we've had some reports that doesn't work well, or you couldn't sign into Bevy using Hotmail, but then when you use Gmail, it worked fine. So we've had, there are some advantages to using a Gmail account and going through Bevy. I want to go through Skills Boost in some detail. I'll going to navigate to this page in a minute here, but for now I just want to give you a preview. There are multiple tabs within Skills Boost. They're called Dashboard Paths, Explore, Profile, and Subscriptions. And then I want to show you like a quirk of the system is that the learning paths are being updated all the time, and many of you can guess why. It's because of all the new Gen AI material that's coming out. So a lot of the so-called learning paths are having new course material added to them to cover Gen AI, whether that's in depth or at least superficially. Gen AI is everywhere now, and it's being added all over Skills Boost to all the existing programs. So what can happen is that you can complete an entire learning path and get a green background on that learning path, and then if you go into the learning path, it will say resume where you left off. Well, it's like, how can it be complete and also need to be resumed at the same time? Well, the reason is what that's telling you is that there have been some updates. You may also get this little warning here at the bottom. There's a new version of this course available. Learn more to upgrade to the new version. You typically do want to upgrade to the new version. There's no reason not to, as far as I can tell. But let me go through a couple more slides, and then I'm going to go actually to Skills Boost itself and show you how this works. So when we get there, there's a bunch of gotchas in Skills Boost, and I want to show you let me back up as long as we're doing this. Back on this innovators thing, there's another program called Champion Innovators that is yet completely different from either of these. Okay, there's Innovators Plus, and then Champion Innovators, which is a volunteer program like being a GDG lead or a GDG organizer. There's another level of volunteering that you can do at Google that's called Champion Innovator. That actually includes, as one of its benefits, becoming an Innovator Plus. So they've kind of like overloaded this word innovator to mean several different things in different contexts. So beware of the polymorphism there. The same thing happens in Skills Boost. There are a lot of things that are similar but confusing. When you go into Skills Boost, you will have a profile. You will automatically have a profile in Skills Boost. You can also create, if you want, something called a Google Developer Profile, which is completely different, completely separate profile from this one that's in Skills Boost. Okay, there are a lot of badges and points and gamification features that they've been adding to Skills Boost. There are also things called certificates versus certifications. which is a little bit confusing if you're not aware of it. So we are following a certification learning path. The difference being this leads to an exam, right? And you can now say, I am a Google professional certified cloud database engineer, right? A certificate does not give you that ability. There's no exam and there's no sort of bragging points that I took this exam. So I think if you, to the extent that certifications have leverage, have weight with employers, they will go probably more than a certificate does. I will show you an example of this in a minute. The navigation through the paths can be very tricky when you're not familiar with Skills Boost. There's no indexing of like which courses belong to which learning paths. You just have to kind of poke around and figure it out for yourself. There are a lot of labs that don't belong to any learning path. They're just standalone labs that are out there. Or if they have a learning path, it's not obvious which one they belong to. They may or may not. The badges, when you get into the profile, the badges, when you start piling up a lot of badges, I find that they're not grouped or ordered in a very meaningful way. So it can be, you just have this big stack of badges, but you don't know which learning path they're connected to or which certification program they're connected to. I find that to be a bit of a gap in the way that the UI works. It's partly me, but it's partly reality also. I do want to show you, now you didn't think you're going to be able to get through a database session without showing at least one data model. So this is my unofficial way of presenting the way I think the Skills Boost entities interconnect. And I would recommend, if you know how data modeling works, this will make sense to you. If not, you may want to learn about this because it's a useful skill. And it's not irrelevant to what we're doing here in this learning path. Now, focus on course. And what this is telling you is you've got, well, what are the crow's feet? Basically, the three feet of the crow's feet symbol means many. Okay, many to many. This is a many to many relationship. So that's what makes this a logical data model. You cannot implement this directly as such on a relational database system as a physical model. You would have to add additional tables in here to make this work, but as a logical model, we can do the many to many in this way and show it. What the way we read this is that a course belongs to many learning paths. A learning path contains many courses within it. Okay, so that's what many to many means. Now, the 0 and the 1 give you a little bit more information. It means that the way I read this is that a learning path must have at least one course in it. So this, you would say a learning path can have one to many courses in it. Conversely, a course can be a part of many learning paths, but it also can be part of 0 learning path. It can be a standalone course. In other words, that's not a part of any learning path. Same thing if you follow the rest of these. A course, I've already told you this, right? A course consists of videos and labs primarily, but there are also quizzes and resources, which are documents like PDFs of the slides, and maybe some G-docs or Word docs or something like that as well, or PDFs. I think they're mostly PDFs. But I did this for fun. It actually does help me understand the differences of what's going on. I pointed out here also there is something called a certificate that connects to a learning path. There is a certification. The difference being this one has an exam. There is a one-to-one, mandatory one-to-one and only one relationship between certification and exam. There is no other possibility of, like, you can't get 2 certifications for 1 exam, etc. Right. So I did this for fun. Let me know what you think of it. I think it's kind of interesting. Let's go look at Skills Boost now before we move to Slack. Okay, let's see how I do this now. Hopefully, Here, skills boost. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I want to give you the orientation of it. And what I'm going to do is just click on, I hope everyone's seeing this skills boost coming up. Yeah, okay, good. I think you are seeing that.
Yes.
Let me go. I'm tempted to go full screen, but I'm afraid I'm going to do something bad. So I'm just going to leave it good enough as it is, right? So as it happens, if you go here to the first thing that you see is a dashboard, and it shows you that this is actually, wait a minute, this is actually a certificate, but I happen to know that this is a certificate, but how do I think, see, this is where I said the navigation is tricky and a little confusing. You have to just kind of invest some time and learn how this UI works. So I believe this is called Cloud Data Analytics Certificate. I think if I click there, I think it's going to show me that it's a certificate. Yeah. Okay, beginner Cloud Data Analytics Certificate. So this is not a certification. There is no certification that has this title. This is a certificate. If you're interested in cloud data analytics, like if you want to be like a data analytics person, you might want to, and it's a beginner. It's for beginners, right? So I'm not going to take this. I'm not a beginner in this field. I don't need to take this, but it might be of interest to you. And so take a look at what it is. It won't cost you anything to explore it, because I think this is one that is videos only, right? And I don't think there's a lab. Yeah, there's no lab associated with this one. So here we go. So what it is exactly is a course. Oh, wait a minute. It's a course. A course could have labs embedded in it. It's down. The big structure here is 5 courses. You see course, 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 course. They're all introductory. So there's nothing too complex here. If you go through all these courses, though, you will get this, you will earn this achievement, which is a certificate. You could put that on LinkedIn. It will be in your profile. It'll be, it's a nice thing to have. But for me, it doesn't advance me at all in any way, because I'm already an expert in this field, so I don't need a beginner's certificate. If you go through this whole thing, you are then encouraged to take a survey, let Google know how they're doing. Let's look at one course in this. It says resume, so I must have looked at this a little bit. Oh, this one course to 18 hours, supposedly. So there is, I'm not going to play this. Everything, usually everything is on autoplay, and it's very aggressive about autoplaying everything. I'm not sure why this adds up to 18 hours, but looks like there's quite a lot here. Okay, that's all I want to do is show you that this exists, right? That there is something called a certificate. Let's see, 18 hours, 26 hours, 27 hours, 12 hours. So there is a lot of material here for something that for beginners. It's fantastic. I mean, it's a really great place to get started. And it's yeah, it's just wonderful. But I'm really impressed that there's this much here. I guess the other thing, you see these points here, 500 points. Those will show up in your badges. We'll get to that in a minute. So that's all I want to show you there. So it's highlighted that on the dashboard because maybe it picked up from my profile that I'm interested in analytics. So maybe it suggested this to me based on that, or maybe it's new. I'm not sure. I have a lot of in-progress learning paths. Let me stay on dashboard for another couple minutes. Wait a minute. I have in progress, but I also have some. I have some completed ones too. Or do I? Well, I should. These are in progress. I'm not sure. Okay. There's also something called favorites. While I'm here, while I see that there's favorites. If you open a lab or a video and there's a little heart symbol on it, you click that heart symbol, it will become a favorite, and that is something that you might want to get to when you have time. And so, for example, I put a favorite on this Terraform thing, which I never had time to complete, but let me just open that up briefly. So let me, oh, come on, my computer's a little slow right now. Yeah, it's not cooperating with me. I don't want to get stuck on this. There should be out on the dashboard, but clearly I've completed some other ones. Oh, there it goes finally. So it's not showing me where it's a favorite, but trust me, there's a little heart symbol, and that's what makes it a favorite. And when you up in your dashboard, and you can refer to it later. So let me go back to the home. Let me go into the paths. So paths are learning paths that you have started. So here's one I want to show you, and it includes. I think it means something that you've either looked at before. I don't think this is every path in the system, or it might be. There's actually a lot here. For example, here's one where I did some Gen AI learning on this learning path, Intro to Generative AI. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Here's an example of, remember that I completed this a few months ago. Learning path complete, green check mark. It says also resume learning path. Well, that doesn't make sense on the surface of it, but what does that mean? Well, I have to drill into this. It means that I completed this, I completed that, I completed all the ones that existed at that time. That's why I completed the learning path, but they since added this new one, prompt design in Vertex AI. That sounds like something that would be really new, right? So they've just added this. I can start that course, which means I'm resuming this path, but I've completed it as of 2 months ago. So that's why it's just seemingly inconsistent. You've completed it and also resume. Okay. As far as other paths, once you click into the one that we're working in, like I've completed this path last year sometime, and I took the exam, and it's again it's the same thing, learning path complete, but resume learning path. It means that they've updated and added some more material, and I happen to know that it's this big table stuff here. Yes, this one is new. Well, okay, here, this is interesting. It says complete, 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 complete. So, but I know from the resume up here that something new has been added, but it's not showing up. In other words, it wasn't a whole new course that was added. It was some pieces of this course. And so I had to open up each one of these. I had to open up each one, figure out, okay, did I complete everything in that or not? And it turns out this is the one where the big table is where they've either added or revised the existing courses, and that's why they're going for me as not complete anymore. So I have to do all these labs. I have to retake all these labs in order to stay ahead of you, right? And this is like out in week 6 or 7, so I have plenty of time to catch up on this and review these. Okay, so that's that. So if you're just beginning and you want to find a new topic, you can go into Explore. Here's the heart symbol that I mentioned. So if you're a couple of things. I don't want to show you this example especially, but I was looking the other day, like, does Google on embedding, like what are embeddings? What are they? Where do they work in Google? How do they work? So yes, they do actually. Look, they have four with relevance to embedding: vector search and embedding, vector search and embedding, create embeddings. Yeah, these are all embedding things. Recommendation systems on Google. I mean, that's not 100% embeddings, but it's related. So I put a heart symbol on all these, meaning they will now show up in my dashboard at the bottom. That helps me find them again in the future. As far as I can tell, none of these courses are associated with certifications or learning paths. They could be standalone. These could be standalone labs, or maybe they are associated with learning path. I just can't discern which one it is. It's not always obvious which is which, and Google doesn't necessarily share that. Okay, so what I'm saying is poke around in here, have fun, explore, as the word says, and you'll get the hang of it after a while. But it's not incredibly intuitive right off the beginning. So I'm going to expand this a little bit. Now, here, I have mixed feelings about the gamification aspects of this. What I'm mostly interested in are my learning paths and my certifications, which are not shown here. But this view of my profile, the path view in my profile, in other words, gives me the status of the paths that I either worked on or completed. And so you can, and the other thing is, you can see that, remember I mentioned that some courses belong to multiple learning paths? Well, for example, I have never explicitly taken any course within this cloud developer learning path. It's not something that I'm that interested in. I mean, it's good, it's wonderful, but it's lower down my list. And so I'm 22% complete on this path, even though I never took a course in that path. It's because I've taken those courses elsewhere. Like maybe up here, there's a course that in this learning path that I completed that actually also fulfills some requirement down in this one. So I could get 22% just for doing something else up here in a different one. The same thing you can also see in some cases. Like I know I completed this digital leader learning path. At the time, I completed 100% of this learning path, but now it's showing me that I'm only 23% complete. Again, that's because something's been added. Substantial has been added probably, because the same thing, I'm no longer, I know because I drilled into it, I'm no longer complete on this one either, even though it's showing as green. Green means complete. Same thing with database engineer. I know I've got some big table stuff to go back and update. I'm not 100% complete on this one either. It's still showing as green though. So it's a little bit slightly inconsistent in some ways, but this at least lets you drill into your paths and examine them and see where you are and make sure that you really are complete. Now, finally, the profile. There's a profile. This is your profile page within Skills Boost. There's also an external profile that you can look at that is not your Google developer profile. This is a Skills Boost public profile, but it's different from Google developer profile. That's another thing we'll talk about some other day. Now, somehow, just because of my activity in the last couple of weeks, I managed to rack up 9,000 points and I got into the Bronze League, whatever that means. And it's like, I think I was even on the leaderboard for a while, having really made a particular effort to do anything spectacular. I got onto the leaderboard somehow. And it's like, I'm suddenly in this Bronze League, which I don't know what that means, but so I just ignore all this gamification stuff. I think it's cute and interesting. It drives me. Okay, it's not a big motivator for me. But if you're into you like to collect all the badges, then this is like, going to, when you go to, you can collect all the pins and all the stickers and so forth, and you can get all these badges. To me, I find like you can jump out to Credly here, which is an accreditation website that Google's starting. You can jump out to Credly. What I find confusing about Credly is that it puts all your badges in one big pile, and it's just confusing to me. It's just the way it works. Like I don't know why it's showing me this. I just don't know why it's showing me this at all. And these are like unrelated to anything I've ever worked on. And it's showing me these as, maybe you'd like to get these badges. Well, no, I don't. I'm not interested in that right now. I'm not sure why it's showing me that. So I think this recommendation system in Credly is weak, and I have a whole rant about how much I don't like Credly. I think the old system suited me better, but Google went Credly, and that's how it is now. So that's what we're dealing with. And so within, going back to Skills Boost now, you can go to the leaderboard. I think maybe I'm even on the leaderboard. Yeah, see, I'm 11 on the leaderboard. I was 8 for a couple days last week. But I'm not sure what I did get there, but so if you like that stuff, that's very good. But this is actually really useful. Your activities is extremely useful. It tells you what courses you took, which ones you passed. Did you get it on the first try? I mean, a lot of these are review for me, so I'm passing them on the first try. Oh, not always though. I had a miss here. I had to repeat. I had a miss here. So, but a lot of them, if you pass on the first try and get 100% on the first try, you get extra bonus points in your Credly badges, or you get higher up on the leaderboard if that's interesting to you. So anyway, that's how all that is. I think that's enough of Skills Boost. Basically, once you get going, you will be in a path. Actually, let me just show you that while we're here. You'll be in a path, and all of this other stuff will be, somewhat irrelevant to you. And then, so this is the database engineer learning path is the one that we're pursuing. It is to a certification. We are going to try, just FYI, we have 6 weeks of what we call the formal sessions, but there actually are 7 important courses here. We're going to have to try to figure out how to squeeze seven of these activities into 6 weeks, and we may not be able to resolve that today, but and when I'll come back to it, we'd like everybody to try this tour of Google Hands-On Lab. Is actually just a walkthrough of how Skills Boost works, or how Quick Lab works. And so it's this is a course that shows up in a lot of learning paths. It's kind of like, hey, we just want to make sure you know how Skills Boost works. If you've already, I've had to take it like 3 or 4 times just to get it to be completed, right? But it's very easy. If you're having trouble with this, you're not going to be able to do very much else. If you're struggling with this first tour lab, you should get in touch with us soon so we can help you, okay? Because you need to get over the hurdles in here in order to be able to do anything else. Now, for next week, ideally, we would like people to, this is kind of just a warm-up. We would really like people to finish this entire course by next week if you can. If you come next week and you haven't finished it, so we're gonna be talking about this. We're going to talk through the material in this course. Ideally, you will have finished it, but if not, you'll learn from the discussion and you'll be able to finish it than on your own. And likewise, so why do I say that? There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 important courses. And if we take away this one, which is the warm-up, that leaves 7, and there are 6 weeks. So we've got to squeeze in, it's more or less one of these per week, but at some point we're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit and get 2 done, or get 5 done in 4 weeks or something like that. So I'm going to work through a suggested pacing. I'll do that this week. I was not able to get that ready for tonight, and we have too much to talk about anyway tonight. So let me jump over to the other material, which is Slack workspace. Okay, I think we had enough about Skills Boost. We are, I think many of you saw this at the top of the hour at 6 o'clock. You saw we have the, let's see, for people who don't know how to get onto this, I guess, should we put this out on Bevy? Or, in other words, if our primary mechanism for communicating with people is Slack and you don't yet have Slack access, how are you going to know that this is the URL that lets you sign up?
It will be in the YouTube video.
It'll be in the YouTube video. Yeah, I guess we are publishing it. I mean,
you can add it. You can add it to the Bevy site too.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
It's fine. We can talk about it after. I don't think it's
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, there are 2 tiny URLs here. There's one for signing up to our workspace, and then this one brings you to our. The channel name is pretty obvious. It's just named after the certification. I think some of you are already. I've seen some of you in it already, and I'm expecting a lot more. So what do you get out of Slack? Connecting with peers. As we've mentioned, we've talked a lot about that. You can share tips and workarounds for difficult labs. We ask you not to share the entire solution for a lab, though. This is kind of undercutting the purpose of it. I've seen, like for example, in the PCA learning path, there's one lab that just is really broken, and the solution that, so nobody could complete it. Several people went to the support channel and kind of badgered the support people into giving them a solution, which was done as a script. So you could either have built this. It was a complicated load balancing setup. You could create it in the console, or you could do it with a script. So support eventually gave a script. Somebody published that out on Slack. I actually ran it and built it, and I discovered that the solution that the support gave us was enough to satisfy the lab, but it actually was not the correct solution, because I went into the documentation and found the correct solution, and I built that in the lab environment, and it was not accepted as the correct answer, even though it clearly was, and the other one was wrong, but it was accepted. So in rare cases, so you'll see when you get into the labs, there are checkpoints, right? For they'll do these steps, like create a cloud storage bucket, and then you do that, and then we'll have a little box that will say check your work, make sure, and then in the background, Skills Boost is going to see if you actually made a bucket. If you did, yay, yes, you get a little check mark, and then you get some points, and you can go on to the next thing. But sometimes, in rare cases, the correct solution actually is not sufficient to trigger the correct answer according to the grader, according to the automated grader. And then your only option is to fudge it somehow so you can get through the lab, and then write it up as a support ticket. which will not, and the support tickets, when you do a skills boost support ticket, do not expect any kind of immediate help. It takes days. It'll take days, and you should think of it as an investment for your future learners down the road, but you may not get any benefit from it because you want to move on, right? You don't want to wait 3-4 days to finish that one lab. You're going to just either force it somehow or learn from Slack how to do it through the trick, or just so you're able to move on and complete that course, right? So we're fine with you. Basically, we're not going to police the Slack, but we ask you to observe like some level of responsibility. Like, it's fine if you post a workaround, or definitely say if you have difficulty with a lab, like on this step of the lab, I had this problem and here's a hint. That's all fine, but we don't want you to post like a whole big solution, or at least not, I don't know, unless it's extraordinary situation, please don't do the whole solution. And then of course the code of conduct is also in Slack, just be nice and helpful. And what else do we want to, oh yes, as I said when I showed you in the database engineering learning path, we want you to do this one in red, which is the 01, which is just the tour. The point of this is to really show that you have access to Skills Boost, and you can tap into the credit pool that has been set up for our group, right? If you're not able to do this, you won't be able to do anything else. So we really, really strongly encourage that you do 01 by next week, or soon, as soon as you can, really, before the end of this week. And if you have difficulty, get on Slack and let us know. We really want you to do this one also, just to start setting the pace. If you can do this by, let's see, if we did one course by the beginning of every one of the 6-week sessions, we'd still be one short. So definitely, if you can, at least make a good effort to start the labs in this 02 course, this will give you at least you'll be able to follow the discussion then. Even if you don't complete it, just make a good effort to start it. And especially if you're new to cloud, this is really going to be key, that you listen to all these videos and go through them, and maybe have to listen to them twice if you're new to cloud. And if you're definitely can run the labs more than once if you want to do that way also. And as I said earlier, once you're in Skills Boost, you can search in the Explore tab, and you can find additional labs that are related that might be simpler. They won't be in this learning path, but you can jump around in Skills Boost and do whatever you want once you're in the learning pool. That's all fair game, but really there's enough in the learning path that you'll be keeping pretty busy just with doing that. So I don't recommend that you stray too far from the learning path. I think that is it of all. I can't believe that took almost 2 hours, but we do have a few more minutes for questions. And if people want to try, is anybody watching the Slack actually? I could.
I have, nobody's been asking anything in there.
Okay, there are no questions in Slack. Have there been questions in the chat that I've been ignoring?
Nothing I haven't addressed, mostly some technical things. You might need to, I don't want to take more time because we're already kind of low on time, but you might need to check something with the event. It won't let you do the post-event survey.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Well, we're technically not post-event yet. Could that be?
That could be why. Yeah, that could be why.
8 o'clock yet. I put it for 8 o'clock.
It could be. I don't know.
That could be.
I'll try again after somebody else had an issue.
Okay.
So for the Skills Boost credits, you must be registered in Skills Boost with the same email you use to register for this program. It will not work.
Correct.
If you are registered with an email. It will not work if you registered with Meetup. must register with the gdg.community.dev page. Most people should have gotten that.
Which we call Bevy, right?
That is Bevy, yep. And you must use the same email for both. That is the only way you'll get the shared credits. You should get an email. There's not really any instructions in the email. The email just tells you you've been added to the credit sharing group. So you need to go in and go in Skills Boost and start your own profile with the same email that you used to be here.
Yeah, thanks for calling that out. I think I implied that, but I didn't hammer it home that way. So, and I was uncertain about Meetup. The people who you said definitely not going to work.
Definitely not going to work. Definitely not going to work.
Okay.
Meetup is like not a real thing for this. So if you saw Meetup, you got there accidentally. All good. Just register for the program again.
Okay, the people that I noticed on Meetup, I requested that they re-sign up on Bevy, but I don't know if they did.
Right. So in terms of receiving additional material with instructions, the material with instructions is what you've just seen. Norbert will put the PDF of these slides in the Slack group, and those will be the instructions. In terms of the pathways, for Skills Boost, you are doing the tour of Google Cloud Hands. It's sort of recommended. And the second course, which is Google Cloud Fundamentals Core Infrastructure, ideally before next course. Getting most of that done would be helpful before the next course.
So we should put this, maybe we'll put this link out on the Bevy site also.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Is there a way to save the chat transcript, or it goes away at the end of the session?
I don't know. Transcription, let's see. I just did that. I don't see a way on my end to do it, but I don't run. You might get something at the end,
okay.
Norbert, but I don't know.
Do you think there's anything in here that needs to be saved?
I don't think so.
Not necessarily. Okay.
Do we have to complete this course before the next session? So again, you do not have to complete the course. It is highly recommended that you do. I will say from experience leading other courses, even though we are giving extra time, right? So we're spreading this out over 12 weeks. If you start getting behind, it gets very, very difficult to catch up in terms of the amount of time it takes to do each course. So I highly recommend you really schedule it out and keep ahead of it. So yes, if you're not finished with Google Cloud Fundamentals Core Infrastructure exactly by next Tuesday, that's fine. But just know that the other courses are actually longer. The other courses within the pathway are actually longer than that. So they don't get shorter, they get longer. So keeping up with the coursework over the 12 weeks is really recommended. And so definitely take at least 10 hours a week of time to kind of commit to this. So I'll just try to make that very, very, very clear. Sometimes people bust through at the end. They go on a weekend bender of Skills Boost that you do you, that's cool. So I try to spread it out myself. So that's just one of our recommendations, and it's why we've spread the pathway is spread out in the way that it is to allow people to kind of take the time and actually absorb the information and be able to complete it in sort of a reasonable amount of time. Edison, if you're already finished with the first two and you want to get ahead of things and start with the third, you go for it. You do you. I don't hold you back, So yeah, don't wait around for us. Yeah.
Maybe you're going to be topping the leaderboard.
Yeah, definitely don't wait around for us. I know I get things done when I get them done, so yeah. So don't wait around for us. And yeah. Of course we'll be in Slack, so any additional questions can be in there. like Norbert said, he'll update the event pages so that people can see the link again, the link to Slack, and reminded of that and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yes. On that point, I would ask you, I did update the event page for next week for June 18th. Please
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and RSVP on that one right away so that we get, we had 150 signups today. I don't know how many people actually joined the meeting, but I think the people that then click through and RSVP to the second week, that's probably our cohort that's going to be with us. And so please sign up right now for June 18th, but hold off on the later ones because I need to update those. They're like they still have a lower cap on the ticket number, and I need to. I wasn't expecting really over 100 people. I was surprised, though. We put the cap kind of low, and it's 250 now, so we should or 500, so we shouldn't have any problems with that. But
And for
yeah.
anyone who did sign up for this one with Meetup, worry not. Just sign up for the next week, and that should trigger your skills boost credits.
Yeah, don't worry about deleting the meetup. We can take care of that in the back end, but just go ahead and join in the
for the
community.
subsequent courses, join in the community page.
Yeah, please join the community, and then if we see the meetups, if we see your double entry, we'll delete the meetup entry.
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna pull the actual link to next week, and I will put that in the Slack workspace.
Slack.
Then people don't even need to worry about it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're at time, not that we have to stop exactly on the dot, but thank you everybody for coming. I think we're off to a good start.
Yeah. Thanks,
Any
everyone.
final words, Jessica?
I don't think I have any final words. Nope.
Okay, well, we'll see everybody 1 week from today at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, US. Wherever else you are in the world, we'll see you again. And have a great week and productive week. And let's get going.